This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome everyone, Bruchim Habayim. Today's shir is dedicated by my good friend Rabbi Ephraim Kenneth Pinsauer, the author of the beautiful Sefer Einoid Milvadoi, a book in the vernacular on Hashem's divine providence. It's being sponsored Lila Nishmas, his father, Rabbi Yisrael Chaim ben Ephraim. Today, Chav Zayin Nisan is his yahrzeit. We wish on this occasion the neshama should have an aliyah, should be l'meil yosher for the whole family. Ad bias koel tzedek. So I just came back from being mekayim the mitzvah of Birchas Ilanos, and I'm very excited that I have the zchus to be mekayim this mitzvah. This is not an ordinary bracha. This bracha is based on the Gemara Brachos, Mem Gimel Amud Beis, where the Gemara says, "Am Rabbi Yehuda, Hayman dinafik biyoyme Nisan." One who goes out during the days of Nisan, v'chazi ilane dekamalav lavi, and he sees trees that are blossoming. Oymer, he makes the bracha, Baruch shalai chisar ba'olam klum. Blessed is God that He did not detract anything from this world. Ubaraba, and He created in it brios toivos, good creations, v'ilanos toivos, and good trees, lehisnois bahen b'nei adam, for people to have pleasure. That is the nusach in the Gemara. Our text is slightly different based on what is brought in Shulchan Aruch Siman Reish Chavav. However, the Sefer Piskei Teshuvos brings down that, amazingly, there's an entire Siman in Shulchan Aruch dedicated to this body of halacha, which we don't find by other brachas. This indicates the importance and the chashivos of this bracha, and this is something we see from the personal conduct of Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, as brought in the Sefer Halichos Shloimeh on Pesach, page Lamed Beis. Reb Shlomo Zalman was very zariz, was very energetic and careful to mekayim this bracha, and he would encourage others to make the bracha at the right time and not to delay and be nisrashal in this bracha. And one time Reb Shlomo Zalman said from the day he became bar mitzvah, he never missed making Birchas HaIlanos. So I want to share with you one nekuda on this Gemara, what's relevant for the next couple of days. We're now holding on the end of Nisan. As we mentioned, today is Chav Zayin Nisan. We have Chav Zayin, Chav Ches, Chav Tes, possibly Lamed. Lamed is still part of Nisan. And the question is, the Gemara says, Hayman denafek biyoyme de Nisan, one who goes out during the days of Nisan. Does that mean that one can only make Birchas Ilanos in Nisan? What if one encounters blossoming fruit trees in Adar? What if they won't be around in Nisan? Or what if Nisan passes? Is one allowed to make Birchas Ilanos in another month, or is one required specifically to make them in Nisan? And the Birkei Yosef, the Chidah, speaks about this, and he says that on almonds that hasten to blossom before Nisan, we should not make the bracha before. Likewise, he says on other trees that if they're blossoming before the month of Nisan, ein levarech. Says the Chidah, al pi Kabbalah also, the bracha of Birchas Ilanos is specifically connected to the month of Nisan, and therefore the Kaf HaChaim concludes, since there is a machloikus and there's a dispute regarding the right time to recite this bracha, if one should not make this bracha in Adar, one should not make this bracha any other time. If one should only make the bracha in Nisan, if one was not able to make the bracha in Nisan, you could still make the bracha, but you can no longer say the name of Hashem. However, this is the psak of the Kaf HaChaim and the Chidah. However, lahalacha, most poskim conclude that in fact, even though the Gemara says Nisan is lav dafka. For example, the Ritva Masechta Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Aleph says on the words Hayde Nafik B'Yomei Nisan, says the Ritva V'Yomei Nisan lav dafka. It's not only Nisan; it just picked a typical case. That's typically when trees blossom in Eretz Yisrael, but the same halacha would apply in any other month. And the Tzitz Eliezer is medayek similarly from other Rishonim, who when they copy over the language of the Gemara, they say Hayman denafik kegoin b'yomei Nisan. For example, Nisan is just a typical example in a typical scenario where one would see blossoming fruit trees. And in fact, this is the conclusion of the Makar Chayim and the Chai Adam and Klal Samach Gimel Sif Beis. And this is the conclusion of the Mishnah Berurah. By the way, in the new Sefer on Pesach, Magid Harakia, we have a chapter on this. It is Perek Hey, and this Sefer is still available. Now, the Yismach Moshe, the progenitor of Satmar, in the Shalsha Chuvas Heishiv Moshe, he says that the reason the Gemara didn't just pick Nisan as an example, but the Gemara specifically chose a month for a halachic purpose. And he says as follows: if the Gemara would have just said somebody who went out, then you may mistakenly have thought that it's like seeing an ocean or a mountain, that if 30 days goes by without having seen an ocean or a mountain, so you'll again make the bracha, Oisa Masa Bereshis. So likewise, you would say that let's say you see a blossoming fruit tree, and then 30 days go by and you don't see a tree, and then you see another one, maybe you should make another bracha. Therefore, the Gemara said, B'yoymei Nisan, to indicate this is seasonal, it's only once a year. Meaning, even if 30 days go by, you do not make the bracha again. The Har Tzvi, Tzvi Pesach Frank, writes that even if Nisan is Davka, meaning even if in Eretz Yisrael you can only make the bracha Nisan, nevertheless, it's reasonable that it's depending where you live. It depends what hemisphere you live in. In other words, perhaps only in Eretz Yisrael, it's only in Nisan, but elsewhere, in other climates, in other regions, it would be whatever month a tree typically blossoms. Chassam Sofer says another possible leniency. Why you're allowed to make the bracha even outside of the month of Nisan, and that is the Gemara doesn't say Hayman denafak b'chodesh Nisan. The Gemara doesn't say someone who goes out in the month of Nisan, but Hayman denafak b'yoymei Nisan, the days of Nisan. The days of Nisan refers to Tekufas Nisan. So if Tekufas Nisan could potentially begin on the 20th of Nisan, it would then go 30 days to the 20th of Iyar. And therefore, the conclusion of Rabbi Vadi Yosef in the Chavadas Chelak Aleph, Siman Aleph, the very first halacha, the very first tshuva in the Chavadas, is one should lecharchila not make the bracha in Adar, but rather wait till Nisan to be able to be yotzei all the days. But if for whatever reason one did not encounter a blossoming tree in Nisan, you can make the bracha in Iyar and not lose out on this very precious bracha. As we mentioned, almost all the Rishonim seem to say Nisan is lav davka. However, let's just add that even though halachically one can make it in Iyar, but as we mentioned, the Chidas does say that al pi Kabbalah, this bracha is specifically connected to Nisan, and let's try to explain a little bit what is the connection between Birchas Ilanos and the Zman of Pesach. So in the Sefer El Yarabah, one of the great poskim, he says that the blessing that befalls one who is careful in this bracha is they are zoicha to the bracha re'ei reach b'ni k'reach sada asher berchai Hashem v'yiten lecha. In other words, the bracha that one achieves, the bracha that one gains by making Birchas Ilanos properly is the bracha v'yiten lecha. Now let's think for a moment. When was the bracha v'yiten lecha said? It was said by Yitzchak to Yaakov. Re'ei reach b'ni k'reach sada asher berchai Hashem. It was said in the Birchas Yaakov. When was that said? What day of the year? It was said on Pesach. Oh, it was said on Pesach. So perhaps the concept of Birchas Ilanos is that we know that every year on Pesach the heavens open up and God gives us the blessing of dew and the blessings that Yitzchak gave Yaakov Avinu. And we explained this at length in Maimer 18, that part of stealing the Afikoimen is to be zoiche to the brachos of Yaakov Avinu that he got from Yitzchak, as Yaakov also stole the brachos, similar to stealing the Afikoimen. Now, we, every year Pesach time, we want to gain the blessings of Yaakov. Re'ei reach b'ni k'reach sada asher berchai Hashem. But we know that in order to gain blessing, we have to do something that elicits the bracha of Hashem. So perhaps the avodah of Birchas Ilanos is by us acknowledging Hashem's beneficence and by us acknowledging Hashem's hatava to us. This makes us eligible during this season when these blessings become readily available, by us blessing Hashem in turn during this season, when this is a season when we gain the Birchas Yaakov, Hashem in turns blesses us with this blessing of v'yiten lecha. So it's a difficult time to be mekayim this mitzvah. Certainly no one should endanger themselves, but it's not too difficult to drive out in your car. I believe there are lists available of where you could find a fruit tree. If you can't get out of your car, if you feel it's dangerous, so you make it inside. It's not lecharchila, but under the circumstances, I would assume that one could, for a short amount of time, put on a mask and make this blessing, and so, or certainly do it from the safety of one's car. So my bracha is everyone should be zoicha to the bracha of Re'ei Reach B'ni Kareach Sada Sharbercha Hashem V'yitein Lecha Loikim Mital Hashamayim. So we have, again, if you don't do it now, you could do it in Iyar. But we do still have a few more days in Nisan. We should be zoicha to Mekayim all the mitzvahs. Kesikunam B'chol Dikdukeihem Uprateim Mekavanaseim. Have a great day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.